Good evening, everyone. I'm your technical critic, and it's time for, well, not exactly a technical critique, more of an amendment to one. Let's call it a content patch. Here's the thing. I've been going over a lot of criticisms on the internet of The Legend of Korra Season 2, Episode 4, and everybody seems to be screaming the exact same thing. Why is Korra such a dumbass? Why can't she figure out that this person is evil? And it was only after reading the comment of a certain woman by the name of Jade who said that he's her uncle, and so she doesn't see it as quickly, that I finally managed to make the connection between Tenzin's story that's been taking up half of the episodes for the last two weeks, and Korra's story with her uncle. If we go back to the beginning of the argument that started this entire thing between Tenzin, his brother, and his sister, what was it about? It was about Aang, their father. Tenzin contends that Aang was a very good father, that he always took all of them places, that he loved them all equally, etc., etc., etc. And his brother and sister are like, no, we were left out. You're the favorite child, and they're arguing about that, da 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 da. And at the end, he goes to them and he says, listen, I've been trying so hard to uphold Dad's legacy that I didn't notice what was going on. And they hug and they do all that stuff. Fine. Here's the thing. That's exactly it. His love and his trust of his father blindsided him to the fact that he was the favorite child and that Aang essentially neglected his other two children simply because they weren't airbenders like he was. And whether that was on purpose or whether that was unintentional, it's not for me to say. Personally, I think that if that was the case, Katara would have kicked Aang's ass so quickly, because she's such a kind, loving, caring, nurturing person that if her husband, of all people, were to be abusing her children in that kind of way, that she would have chewed him out like that. I could just imagine the arguments of them having, Aang, why would you take Tenzin all the way over to ride Elephant Koi? Well, they're not airbenders. She would have just ripped his head off and chewed it to smithereens. But that's besides the point. What we have here is a classic example of a character being blindsided by love for family. And this is what's happening with Korra. We, the audience, are watching the story as outsiders. We see everything that's going on. We see the fighting between the two brothers. We see the troop movement. And a lot of people guessed right from the beginning, as soon as they saw those two demon spawn of children, that, hey, this is our new evil guy. This is Tarlok 2.0. This is Umalak the oppressor. Blah 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 blah. All the names that everybody's been giving him. But personally, I didn't see it. Why? Because I'm not a person who can judge other people on their looks. The fact that I wear this mask should prove that absolutely and entirely. I have to judge people based on their actions. And the way that Tarlok and Umalak were arguing with each other, I actually saw it as a source of friction stemming from religious spirituality. And that's where I thought that this entire series was going, so I accepted it like that. Basically, it's like an atheist in a religious family. The two of them will naturally fight with each other because they have opposing ideas. Tarlok, he has this idea that the spiritual world and the world that they live in, the Bender's world, should remain absolutely separate. Umalak, he believes that the spirits and everybody else are supposed to be intertwined and connected, and in that way they're supposed to feed off of each other, which is a natural thing for a spiritualist or a mystic to do, which is why the two of them would naturally fight with each other. This is why they would have a hatred for each other, and this is why you would see a lot of animosity between the two of them. So I accepted that as well. It was only after Umalak went and moved his troops into the city that I said, okay, this is not somebody who's interested in helping the South with their spiritualism. This is somebody who's looking to either conquer the city and put it underneath I don't know, maybe his spiritual rule. Maybe he's going to force everybody to worship the spirits, or however they or however they do it, or just force everybody to conform to some kind of code. And that's where a lot of friction is going to come from. But we didn't get that again either, or at least not yet. I'm not sure what's going to happen. And so it was there. It's like, okay, this is not the good guy. And I thought that what we were going to get was a lot of build-up with, well, we have to do this stuff for the spirits. And a lot of secular build-up, well, you know what, they're oppressing us for the sake of the spirits. And that was where the conflict was going to come from. Not this, okay, I've come to take over the city and become ruler of both the tribes. Oh, he's come to take over the city and become a ruler of both the tribes. We can't let that happen. And it doesn't have the depth of story I thought it was going to have. But that's not the point of this rant either. The point is that Korra got blindsided because of her caring towards her uncle. Her uncle is her family. So when he does things, and he tells her that he's doing it for these particular reasons, if a normal person came to you and said, here, let me think of these. I've got it. If some random stranger went to you and said, "Hey, that guy just hit his kid," you would think, "Huh, he's a bad person for hitting a kid." But if you grew up in a family that's from the Caribbean, like mine, and you have somebody in your family like an uncle or a grandmother or somebody, and they said, well, I had to hit my kid because they were not doing something correctly and I'm trying to discipline them to do something correctly, you would say to yourself, well, I can consider that, and that's their child, and you would come up with a list of reasons as to either why or why not that's semi-okay. Now, I'm not saying it's okay to hit kids to discipline them. Not saying that at all. Time out, not saying that at all. It's not okay to hit your kids to discipline them. I think it's a very redundant, very tactile, very out of old-fashioned way of thinking. But there are some people who feel that that is a good form of discipline. Being raised in the Caribbean, that's one form of discipline that you got quite a bit. And so at least there's some kind of understanding that you might not agree with it, but you understand it. Whereas if somebody else did that, you might be like, well, you know what, I don't care if you're disciplining your kids. It's still wrong to hit a kid because you're an adult, you're a giant, and the kid is like, what, 3 or 4 feet high? You're smacking around somebody half your size. That's not cool. And that's where you would get some kind of disagreement there. But because Umalak is her uncle, there's an inherent trust there that, okay, what he's saying might actually be true. Now, personally, I feel he wanted to send her north to open the spirit portal just to have her out of the way. And also, by the time she opens the spirit portal, then he can march his troops back and forth between the north without having to transport them over water, which is pretty much a very good military tactician strategy. Which, at that point, when he said, you have to open the other portal so that people and spirits can pass through, I said, okay, that tears it. He's the bad guy. For me, that's what did, because I have to judge him on his actions. As Korra, it had to go through a trial, and again, she trusts her uncle because she told her uncle, listen, these men deserve a fair trial, even though they're traitors. He said, okay. He agreed with her and reinforced her. He then goes and he gets her parents. Now, here's the thing. If Umalak was not related to her, here's what I think would have happened. I think that that episode would not have started with her mother and father getting into a paddy wagon and being driven to a courthouse and a prison. I think that episode would have started with, shh, Umalak, you're not taking them. Stand aside, Korra. This is the business of the chief of the water tribe or whatever. Big fight scene, or almost big fight scene. You would have had Tarlok going, wait, Korra, no, I'll go with him. Just don't do anything rash. And that it would have been Korra having to be restrained by parental authority, and you would have gotten something like that. But because Umalak is Korra's uncle, she's trying to reason with him. She's trying to argue with him. She's trying to give him an out, a way to explain himself. And what does he say? He says, I have this guy. I know him for a very long time. He's a very good man. He's a very fair man. He's going to be a fair judge at the trial. And he's going to judge based on the evidence. What does Korra say? Okay, I don't like it, but because you're my uncle, I'm going to go along with it. They're at the trial. They're doing the judgment. She's giving her evidence. You could Korra doesn't see it because Korra doesn't see how unfair the trial is. Personally, I didn't see how unfair the trial is because he didn't ask any leading questions. He basically asked all the questions that I thought any judge would have asked in trying to judge a case impartially. Where did these people meet? Did they happen to meet at your parents' house? Were your parents involved in the meeting? Yes, 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 yes. Okay, I've heard enough. Based on the law and based on the evidence, it looks like your parents were actually involved, if not in the kidnapping, at least in the planning stages of that, or at least were some kind of participants. So I'm going to sentence them to the sentence that goes along with being a traitor to any particular government, which is death. I don't think that's the case now. I think it is life imprisonment. I don't know what the sentence for being a traitor to a government is. In many autocratic dictatorships or monarchies, it usually is death. And Korra, acting as Korra always does, because this is something she doesn't like, she goes, if you don't let them go, if you kill my father, I'm going to kill you, which is something that I expect Korra to say, because first of all, she's a teenager, second of all, she's reacting in the moment, and thirdly, she's acting rashly because she's not thinking logically. So I would expect that of Korra. What does her uncle do? Her uncle who's trying to keep everything in control, he goes, wait, Korra, calm down. Let me talk to him. And again, he's relying on that relationship. Listen, I'm your uncle, you're my niece, I know this man, let me talk to him and take care of it. And it's not like Korra's going, no, you absolutely shouldn't, he should da-da-da-da-da-da. Again, there's that trust there. She still trusts Umalak because he's her uncle, because this is family and business. So he goes to the judge, he goes, listen, I said I'd respect your decision, but give these people mercy. Da-da-da-da. And you see the judge think about it, he goes, okay, life imprisonment instead. I'll give them the most lenient punishment I can think of for an act of what is it? Not sabotage. Begins with an S. Sedition, for an act of sedition, which is life imprisonment. Which personally, I thought it was fair. I thought that was a fair, that was a pretty fair judgment. It tricked me. Korra doesn't like it. It's only after, but she accepts it. She accepts the words of her father, even though it's within 10 seconds you see her riding up on the judge. I think it's like a day or two passes before she finally goes after the judge in the Avatar world. It's only after she sees how much her mother is hurting, and that her father is in prison, that she decides, okay, you know what? I'm going to break my promise because this is something for the family. I need to get my father released. And it's not like she goes to break him out. She goes to threaten the judge again because she promised her father she wouldn't break him out. And it's only then after an outside party says, I only did what your uncle told me to do. Wait, your uncle told me to do that? Yes, he wants to keep you on his side to death. So it's only then, from that shifted perspective, that she looks at it through this other prism, that she says, wait a second, now his actions in this secondary context make more sense. In a family context, in a trying to hold things together context, they make perfect sense. In this other perspective, they look evil. They look manipulative. They stack up upon one another like Lego blocks, and they all fit together to form that image of somebody who is trying to take over. we've all been looking at it through this perspective, like, okay, this is the bad guy, this is what he's doing. She hasn't. Her gaze has been shifted. It's only after she threatens to feed the judge to her polar bear dog that we get that shift in perspective. So this is why Korra's not dumb. Korra's, she's rash, she's hot-headed, she's loyal, but she's not dumb. She can. It's not like you had to walk her through the entire thing. She managed to put it together, piece by piece, with one clue. I mean, look at her with in the first season with the Equalists. She knew right off the bat that the Equalists were not trying to do the right thing. Were not trying to do what's best. They were simply trying to take power. She knew right away. She was interested in fighting them, and we saw that. We saw a lot of those action sequences. We saw a lot of that. Here, it's less obvious to her because it's her family doing it. So Korra's not dumb. It's just she's been blindsided. So that's been my content patch. I will see you later for another content patch on my Legend of Korra 4 review. I'll say what I have to say till then. See you.